Yeah, hi. I want to start a series of videos about miracles that I've seen. And I was reminded last night when I was reading Acts of the Apostles that one of the things that Paul was instructed to do was to be a witness to the things that he's seen and that he was going to see. So I'm going to start each video with a different miracle because there's about 10 of them. Maybe more, probably more, but 10 that I really stick out as being miracles that I've experienced. And I'm going to start with the strongest miracle because even though none of the miracles that I'm about to talk about could be coincidence, mere coincidence, somebody always could discount it to coincidence. So this is the most undeniable miracle that ever happened. And I'm going to show you right now what happened. Basically, I'll give you a brief rundown. Basically, in a nutshell, God proved to me that He's able to break people out of prison the way He broke Paul and Silas out of prison, the way He broke Peter out of prison. Was able to prove to me that these stories that seem so fantastic are actually true stories, and that's why they were written down, and that's why they were repeated, to convince the people living at that time that they were true, and obviously not to try to convince people 2,000 years later that they were true, because it would be of no benefit to them. So why would they lie? So I'm going to show you right now how God broke my little dog out of a prison. It was a little carrier that I put him in shortly after I got him as a puppy. I had another dog, and then I got him as a puppy, and he was just being a puppy, but I thought he was acting up. So I was so frustrated with him. I put him in the carrier before I went to bed, and I locked him in it, and he was trying desperately to get out until we all fell asleep, and then we were abruptly awoken, and the carrier door was off the hinges, and it was laying on the ground next to it, and my little puppy, he was about 3 months, no, he was maybe like, 3 to 4 months old. He was laying fast asleep still inside the carrier. So I'm going to show you the carrier, and I'm going to show you the carrier door, and I'm going to show you what it takes to remove the door, just to prove to you that it had to be a miracle. Only an angel could have done it. So here goes. Okay, this here is the carrier that I'm talking about, and at that time I had my little puppy. He was a pretty big puppy. I mean, maybe like 4 months old. Maybe 15 pounds at that time. And he was in here, and I'm going to show you how these are sealed. As you can see, it's a carrier for flying, very secure. It's got this double door feature, whatever that means. It's really because there's a door on top here that you can open. But I want you to see, this is the door that was what was removed from the hinges, and I want you to see what it takes to take it off its hinges. This is a spring. The spring has to be lifted to open it. So you can see it takes a human hand with thumbs to get that off its hinge. Now, to get the other one off its hinge, you have to do the same thing. See, it won't go. Spring. It's a spring. That's the exact scene I was woken up to in the middle of the night with my little puppy sleeping soundly inside the carrier on his side. So as you can see, there's no way that, well, first of all, here's what happened. This is how I know it wasn't just my imagination. I had gone to bed after I put the little puppy in the cage because I was so upset with him. He was just misbehaving and being a puppy, like eating his own poo, and it was a long story to. It was just a lot of stress I was under at that time, so I got frustrated with him and stuck him in there. And I went to bed with my other dog, a little guy too. He was full grown, like 2 years old, but what was he? It was 1.5. Yeah. So the two of us fell asleep, and then finally, the little puppy in the cage. He's really not a little puppy. He's more like. He was like 4 or 5 months old, a Shih Tzu. He was close to. This would have been. I don't know. Anyway, but he was big enough to fit in there, and he finally stopped trying to get out, and he fell asleep. We all fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I was startled awake, and I know it wasn't my imagination because when I opened my eyes and I looked, I saw my other dog who was in the bed with me. He got startled too, and he was looking over my shoulder, like basically the carrier was on the floor behind me like it is now. The little dog got up here and he was looking over, and then he ran over to this side of the bed and he was going to jump off, and I grabbed him so he wouldn't jump off. And then it occurred to me, I better let my little puppy out of the cage. And then that's when I turned. I looked, and that's what I saw. I saw the cage, and the door, and the little dog was inside sleeping. And I reached inside, and I took him out, and I brought him into the bed with me. And I was never afraid, like as if someone was in the house. So I wasn't scared. It wasn't like it was a demonic force or anything like that. It was obviously an angelic force. And then it occurred to me later, I was reminded by the Holy Spirit, obviously, but I was reminded of just prior to that, I had been reading the Bible as I would read it nightly before bed, and I was reading Acts of the Apostles, and I remember reading about when Paul was in prison with Silas, and they were in the stock, and they were in a dungeon, and an earthquake occurred, and it opened all the prison doors. And I remembered after this happened with my dog, I remembered that at the time I was reading it, I was thinking, I find that very hard to believe. And I remember not saying it, but thinking it, and that just shows you how your thoughts reverberate in heaven. Your thoughts can be like a loudspeaker in heaven. And I've experienced that many times. But it was basically, I was thinking, I'm going to just take it on faith. Like, I couldn't believe it, but I said, all right, well, I'll take it on faith. And next thing you know, boom, God proved to me, as a matter of fact, that, yeah, if you think I can't break people out of prison, watch this. And an invisible force was able to take this door, okay, and these springs these springs have quite a bit of tension. You know, I have to hold it here to do it. See, you can see there's a lot of tension there. The spring is inside. The springs are inside here and inside there. So this was taken off the door, and that taught me a couple things. It taught me that, number one, yeah, God can open prison doors, and it taught me another thing, that God does care about these little animals. I cared about my little animals. I overreacted, and I was living by myself, and it was a lot of stress I was under for a lot of reasons, and living in a not so great neighborhood, and going outside your door and just being depressed, and then him being a puppy, sort of chewing on his, poo a little bit, which was even more depressing, and not realizing that that's something that puppies sort of do. And dogs don't always come with a user's manual, so, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to, so it was just a lot of stress I was under at the time, and I didn't hurt him. I just put him in the but that is punishment that he didn't deserve. So whether it was an angel sent by God or my guardian angel, but wouldn't tolerate that. And God is always able to hit as many birds with one stone as he wants. Not just two birds with one stone, but as many as he wants. So in this instance, he hit at least two birds. He taught me that indeed he can open prison doors and set people free, as he did Paul and Silas and Peter. He set Peter free once, and I believe Peter and John free once, as recounted in the book of Acts. So that's it, really. That's miracle number one, and I don't want to belabor the point. It is what it is. You might not want to believe that Acts, the story in the Acts, and there's plenty of non-believers who will tell you it's a fantasy or a fairy tale or made up, but I can tell you I'm alive. I'm flesh and blood. I'm more than willing to take a lie detector test and prove that what I'm talking about really happened. The odd thing I will note is that you do tend to go on with life as usual, as though you didn't just see a miracle, and you can get caught up in old patterns of sin and forget the reality of God, because God only shows himself every now and then, and more to some people than others, and obviously he's shown himself to me, so I have a duty to preach the gospel and the truth of Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, and the truth of the devil, which the whole point of the gospel is to turn people from the power of Satan to the power of God. So next time you want to criticize the Jews in the desert, who, despite all the wonders they had seen coming out of Egypt, nevertheless turned to idols or grumbled, complained. I've found that I can be no different, that despite having seen a miracle as great as that one, on top of all the other miracles, I too sort of lost sight of the fact, and that's one that I don't really talk about. I tried telling people when I first, back in July 2007, when I first believed, when it was first revealed to me and I knew that Jesus was the Son of God, I wanted to tell everybody, but I was pretty much rejected by all those people, and then I sort of retreated and sought isolation, and that's no good. And then I reacted from that and went back into the world to a certain extent, carousing and drunkenness, and but I'll get to that in another video coming up, because that's another miracle, the way in which God was able to answer a prayer and take me out of that pattern of living. So miracle number one is counted, and miracle number two will be on the way.